All right, shalom, shalom. All right, before we go any further within this lesson, I want to open up by giving all praises, honor, and glory with infinite blessings unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakah HaKodash. And I also want to give double honors to our beloved elder bishops and to the elder apostles of Great Millstone that teach well and that rule well. Don't want to forget about the prophets. Akim, laboring within this truth sincerely, scattered across the four corners of the earth, wherever you may be. Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Barakatham, unto you and into your households within these evil days, these evil times in which we are surely living in. All right. And I just had an experience with dealing with a Jake as I'm out, I'm out. I got my little, got my family with me, my little siblings, whatever, sisters and brothers and things of that such. And I'm at the pool, and as I'm at the pool, the security officers, there's Jake, we can tell when someone is trying to get our attention or like eager to speak to us or just, we can feel when, someone is intrigued or, basically they can feel your energy, and then they want to, talk to you or etc. whatever, bro. But basically that's what I felt from off of the one Jake, as I'm just, chilling, just watching over the little ones. But Jake, he said something to me as he walking past, as he's patrolling. And I said, what's up? How you doing? Things of that such sort. And then we just started talking. And as we started talking, Jake brings up being a Hebrew Israelite. So I'm like, oh, okay. I said, you're a Hebrew Israelite, huh? I said, so what's that? He goes into explain. All right, he said, I see your I see your chain. Brother said, I'm like, yeah. Just some, a brother gave me, a friend gave me, which, a brother gifted this unto me, But I told him, yeah, I said, yeah, a friend gave it to me. And then Jake just talking about some Yahweh being Yahweh. But the point is, man, like, I said all that, that was my testimony. But the point was, man, bro, Jake know. Jake know what's up. We definitely are in those times, man. Okay, to where the world, or majority, okay, those souls who are supposed to hear this word have heard it. Either it has been accepted, okay, or rejected, man. Jake definitely know, okay, have some form of understanding that they are the Lord's people, man, and that they're Israel. You know what I'm saying? Simply, they're Israel. All right. And this brother I was speaking to, he was in his 40s, late 40s. Jake don't crack, so he didn't really look like it. But he was just, just talking. We were just talking. I was just asking him simple questions, basically just trying to fill out his spirit. To know what he know. To be to be wise as as possible, man. The scripture says to be wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove. But just I didn't know. I didn't let him know anything. I'm the one. I'm on the end asking questions as if I don't know what's going on. And really, that's really how it's supposed to be. Being out in public. With these people, man. Keep it short and simple. wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove in the sight of these people, man, because, all right, if they're not coming in the name of Yahweh Shema Shai, ultimately, man, they're enemies, bro. They are enemies. It's as simple as that. All right, which brings me to the point of this. It says, Romans chapter 10 and verse 2. It says, "For I bear them record that they have a zeal of the Most High, Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, but not according to knowledge." All right, I asked this brother, Southern Kingdom brother to be exact. I asked him, I said, so how do you know these? How do you know all this? As if I'm oblivious. How do you know all this? And I said, when did you start to get into this? He said 2007. Around 2007. Or I think he said, was it 2007? Yeah, he said like around 2007. Just, a couple years earlier before, I'm pretty sure the elders and apostles were on YouTube. All right. But the point is, man, since the elders have been on YouTube, all right, before even that, constantly preaching on the highways and the byways, and in this word, okay, being preached, okay, it's being preached out, bro. So how much more now? It's been years since 2009, bro, since the elders have gotten, on the internet, since the Lord opened that tool, okay, to be used so that, this knowledge can go out to the four corners of the earth, man. Okay. So, it just goes to show you, man. Jake knows. Okay, Jake knows. Jake ain't dumb no more, man. I mean, Jake saw this, as the scripture says, but somewhere, shape, or form, all right, this, the people that need to hear it have heard this. Okay? But Romans 10 and 2, "For I bear them record that they have a zeal of the Most High, but not according to knowledge." And for that man, he know he's an Israelite, but he just don't got it. And that's fine. Humbly speaking, because the scriptures tell us how the election have obtained it, and the rest were blinded. Okay? But let's get this. It says, the book of Matthew, chapter 24, and verse 14. And it reads, "And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come." And which that process has been sped up, all right, once again, by the way of the internet, man. Okay, YouTube doing these digital epistles, in which our elders and our apostles, man, they started with it, bro. Labors that followed over, okay, in which younger men have to walk into those labors to push this word. So there's no excuse of the work, the world. I mean, the word not going out, because it has. Okay, it has, man. And now we're at the end of this thing. But I just wanted to speak on that, because that just goes to show you, okay, that the truth is being pushed out, bro. All right, you got right. That's not every day that you see a Jake, okay, that tells himself, or not tells himself, but calls himself Hebrew Israelite. But the scriptures do tell us that man's goings are of the Lord. I wanted to speak to him, a little bit, drop. I really wanted to tell him what that charagma was, man, but I didn't really want to get too deep into it. My spirit was just telling me, nah. Then again, because scripture says how a old bottle, you can't put new wine into old bottles. I'm not saying that was the case, but all through the spirit. All right. Point being made is, we here, man. This shit is over, bro. Babylon is over. So Lord, one, this lesson was edifying. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory with infinite blessings unto Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakah HaKodash. Until next time, I say Shalom.